Hello, this is Editor Joel from the future, here with some bad news. If you notice that this episode came out a little later than the initial release date, that is absolutely true. When we were recording, we used a different setup than we had been using. I know we've said that before. We're still trying to finalize exactly how we want to set everything up. Hopefully for episode 72 of the podcast, we will have figured that out. We already have a setup that we're going to try. But unfortunately, what that means is that Kat and I sounded no good on this episode of the podcast. So what we're essentially doing is we're taking the time to re-record our lines. If it sounds like I don't know, maybe we are saying words that maybe should be surprised, or if we sound like we should be angry or something, and it's just kind of coming across as whatever. We're not great at reading off of scripts, which is essentially what we're doing. We do apologize for this, and hopefully we will be able to fix this by the next episode. Thank you for your patience, and we hope you enjoyed the episode.
Boop-a-doop-a-doop-boo. Boo. 3.5, not a real season. 3.5, but still king of the what? Now 3.5. Gonna watch some pirates. 3.5 before season 4.
Start the show!
Hello, fellow shipwrights of Water 7, and welcome to episode 71 of King of the What Now. We are a One Piece anime podcast watching from the very beginning. I'm your host, Joel. I'm a longtime fan. I love me some One Piece, and also, I'm an unlucky mook who lost a game of poker and now has to go buy booze for everyone. Huh? Who's that? There's someone at the door. Is he stretching? Oh my god, that's a fist!
And I am Curtis, your co-host and a casual One Piece fan. And I am the man who designed the everything cannon. The cannon that can hit literally everything. Well, I guess except for those four over there. Well, damn it.
Although, to be fair, nobody asked you to consider firing at a reindeer during the specification phase of design.
It was not in the design parameters I was given by the customer.
Woo, I'm Kat. I'm the spooky ghost of the podcast, and I kept trying to get my intro out for the last 10 seconds, but people kept having jokes. Yeah, I'm here. I like One Piece. It's a good show. I forgot to do my other kind of intro because I got distracted by my silly bit. Can I do the most succinct of succinct summaries before you do your succinct summary, Curtis?
Sure, go for it.
Okay, here we go. We watched 4 episodes. Here's my succinct summary of those 4 episodes. Usopp is dead! The Straw Hats beat up some guys! But no, Usopp's not dead! But the mayor's gonna die! And Usopp and Luffy fought! And now Usopp is dead again! But just in our hearts. That's it. That's my succinct summary.
That was our latest segment. It's called Kat Yells into a Microphone About One Piece.
It's interesting that you say that. I'm toying with the idea of doing abridged summaries of things. Not One Piece, of course. I wouldn't take that sacred right from you. But I have now done 2 for the podcast. I did the summary of One Piece up until Sky Island for one of our cold opens, and then in our May bonus episode, I included the same style of quick summary about the MCU. Plus, I've also done one for the 5 parts of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure that had been animated. So, Kat shouts into the mic, I shout into the mic. Maybe this will be a recurring thing. I think I'll call them off the cuff.
We're really good at screaming.
Oh, yeah. No, but seriously, we should, do that. We should have, my succinct summary, but before that, we have Kat's succinct summary, but before that, we have Joel's even more succinct summary, and it's like a reverse Russian Esteen doll.
Oh, where each one is the smallest possible summary, and then each one is progressively longer?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then eventually we'll just get into a 6-hour summary from a very dry-voiced narrator. And then Usopp turned to the left, and he drew 3 pellets, but only fired 2.
And here you can see that the line thickness is 5 millimeters instead of the normal 3 millimeters, indicating tension.
Curtis, stop. You're going to give our architecture nerd listeners the hardest time concentrating on the episode. You're giving them too many spicy details.
That was a great way of phrasing that, babe.
Thanks, babe. So we just finished watching 4 episodes of the anime, 233, 234, 235, and 236.
Yes, we did. And now I will give my slightly less succinct summary than Kat's very good succinct summary. So, we start off, and word spreads throughout the crew that the Going Merry is not doing very well and will never sail again. I almost said fly? It doesn't fly. Sad.
It flew for a moment.
That's true. It fell. It fell gracefully. The only exception to this is Robin and Usopp, who haven't heard yet. Nami and Luffy finally realize that Usopp is gone. Luffy runs off to find him, but Nami finds him first. He's lying in the street, mostly dead. In what is the second best Usopp moment so far, Usopp tells Nami that he can't face the crew after losing 200 million due to his weakness. Nami asks him to stay there for a while as she goes to get help, but he doesn't listen. And in the first best Usopp moment to this point, he gets up and storms the Franky house alone.
Curtis, come on. It's not first best. It's most bestest. Jeez Louise.
Okay, the most bestest Usopp moment to this point.
Thank you, Curtis.
Despite his bravery, Usopp is severely beaten by the Franky family. Again, Luffy, Zoro, Sanji, and Chopper find him outside of the Franky house after they go looking for him, all beaten up. They're pissed. They beat the entire Franky family, except Franky, who left with their money, and for good measure, they destroy the Franky house. While Chopper tends to Usopp's wounds, Luffy announces his decision on the ship. This will be the last stop for the Going Merry. It's not continuing past Water 7. Usopp regains consciousness back on the Merry, only to learn about Luffy's decision to get a new ship.
Oh, hell no. We're not abandoning the ship, says Usopp.
Yeah, he doesn't take it very well. And in a long and dramatic scene that my summary is not going to do justice, Usopp leaves the crew and challenges Luffy to a duel for possession of the Going Merry. The duel begins, and Usopp fares well initially. He knows Luffy's weaknesses and uses tricks to distract Luffy and turn his power back on him. But in the end, Usopp is no match for the Rubber Man. Luffy decides to leave Usopp the Going Merry anyways, so the crew vacates the ship and leaves Usopp beaten on the shore. And that has been my succinct summary.
Yeah, and folks, if you're listening to this and you haven't seen these episodes ever, or maybe you just haven't seen them in a while if you're a fan, go back and rewatch these episodes right now. That's your homework. Because a lot of the times in One Piece, there isn't nuanced character conflict. It's usually Luffy wants to punch someone, some kind of villainous character, and it simply takes him time or effort in order to find that person and then punch them. Or the character growth comes from the background characters, such as Aiza from Skypiea deciding to trust the Blue Sea Dwellers, or the people of Nami's village deciding to stand up against Arlong. Which means we don't see much internal conflict among the Straw Hats, either individually or between the different crew members, but this is one of the few times we're going to see such a strong tension between the members of Luffy's crew, and it is handled beautifully. These hit just as hard as the big arc finale battles, such as against Eneru or Crocodile or Arlong, but are focused on the characters more personally. These may be 4 of my favorite episodes we've covered so far.
And honestly, like, these are probably a good 4 episodes. If you wanted to introduce somebody just to get them interested in One Piece, these would be good 4 episodes for that. Like, you might have to give them a little bit of explanation on who the different crew members are, but that's about it.
Do you think it would be as emotionally resonant if you didn't have all the buildup of Luffy and Usopp's friendship?
Maybe not, but I'm not sure. I still feel like you would kind of get what was going on.
I can partially see that. As always, it's easy for the fans of a series to assume non-fans will pick up on all the context clues, and it will resonate with them just as strongly as it does for us. I think one could enjoy these episodes, to an extent, pretty well without having seen the previous 200-plus episodes, but the best way to get that impact is to have the emotional investment that comes with having seen all the previous build-up. I do want to jump in with 2 more quick thoughts that don't need much deeper of a discussion, but are still worth noting. Firstly, as you noted, Franky wasn't there for the raid on his house. However, there were 2 other members that escaped with him, 2 other members that went with him that also weren't there for the raid, and their names are Mozu and Kiwi. They are twin sisters with weird square hair.
Not weird. Fantastic.
But yeah, one's dressed mostly in red, the other one's mostly in yellow, and they won't be playing a major role going forward, really. It's not like they're the secret bad guy behind Franky or anything like that. It's just that they're great, I love them, and they have literally 2-dimensional square hairdos. My other quick thought was that as part of the MCU's Phase 4, they'll be doing a What If animated series for Disney+, slated for release of summer 2021. And in that same vein of thought, I wonder what if Usopp had won the duel and taken the Merry. I want to see an alternate reality short about that universe.
Oh man, I feel like Zoro would have just left the crew, like, immediately.
Really? You think so?
Yeah, because he seems like the type who needs to respect his captain, and if Luffy had lost, I think he would have lost any respect for him. You have to remember that Zoro has literally never seen Luffy lose. He didn't see Luffy lose to Crocodile, did he?
No, but he was told Luffy was dead. If I recall, he and the rest of the crew dismissed the notion when the news was delivered. Oh, there's no way. That must be a lie.
Yeah, so he has never seen his captain lose. I think it would severely shake him if Luffy had lost to Usopp.
Oh, you mean you think he would leave Luffy? I thought you meant he would leave because Usopp would be in charge.
Oh, no. Yeah, I think the rest of the crew are okay with the decision to leave the Mary here. They can see there's no point in arguing with Luffy, and they accept the truth that we've been told about the Mary.
Yeah.
Okay, so what do you find folks want to focus on first? Should we start with the duel and the raid, or should we start with the smaller bits that we liked and then sort of build into the larger discussion?
Let's talk about the duel.
Do we don't want to talk about the lead up to that, or we just want to jump straight into the duel and then go back?
No, I was gonna say, I guess the Franky House stuff is important too.
Okay, so I actually have started to write down my thoughts for these episodes before we start recording, just as a way to keep myself on track. Crazy, right? And I have one bullet on here that's just all caps, "We get another walk!" I love the walk to the Franky house. When we got to Arlong Park and the first coordinated walk scene happened, I believe I told you, Curtis, we'll get a few more of these down the line. It doesn't happen every arc, but when it does, holy crap, is it significant and so great. This one isn't the whole crew, but you have 4 crew members all walking towards the Franky house. Luffy, Zoro, Sanji, and Chopper. And at first, you just see Zoro's feet making their way across the screen. This is followed by the first flashback of Usopp showing off his painting skills. Then you see both Zoro and Sanji's feet walking on screen. You get a second flashback. This time it's in Alabasta, with Usopp having gotten his goggles back from Sanji. Oh, thank you got my goggles back! Now you have 3 sets of feet, and you get a flashback of Usopp telling one of his tall tales. Now you get all 4 pairs of feet walking in unison, and Usopp's, "I have 8,000 followers," is the 4th flashback. As an added bonus, you even get a 5th flashback of Usopp tearfully telling Nami he wasn't strong enough, which cements that Nami is totally with them in spirit, even if she stayed back on the ship to protect the rest of their treasure. Also, she has guns now for some reason. Don't get used to that, Curtis. They don't stick. But the more you think about it, the more you realize that each flashback that was shown was exactly that crew member's strongest impression of Usopp. So the first pair of feet you saw was Zoro's, and his flashback actually kind of is a little weird, like, "Oh, I drew the Jolly Roger." That's cool. But like, Sanji was the one who got Usopp's goggles back. Chopper's the one who always believes his lies. Nami was the one who was there when he confessed his weakness and is a fellow weaker member of the crew. And Luffy's is the first time that they met. It only takes a couple of seconds to establish this shot as they're walking towards the Franky house, but it just reaffirms the bonds of friendship between the crew. It shows where their heads are at as they're getting ready for the beatdown. It's absolutely amazing.
The other thing I really like about these coordinated walk scenes is that the show spends so much time showing the Straw Hats at odds with each other or getting into like these goofy sibling-like fights.
Or everyone is in separate locations where everyone's doing their own thing and therefore the power of the crew is scattered.
Right, exactly. So these scenes are like the only time they're all focused on a single purpose, and it's just, oh no, the people they're coming for better watch out because they don't have any goofery to distract them this time.
Yeah, no, it's definitely like when they concentrate their power in one point, like especially with the monster trio. It's too much.
Yes. Also, really quick side note, and I know we've mentioned this a couple of times in the last few episodes of the pod, but this is the episode where I finally realized, oh, Zoro does put on the bandana, and Sanji lights his cigarette, and Luffy puts on his straw hat. That's their individual tell for we're about to get serious. Chopper, unfortunately, just has knuckle cracking for the scene, which is a bit generic, but you can't exactly blame him. He can't take the rumble ball, walk to the scene of battle, waste precious minutes, and then run out in the middle of battle.
Yeah, did you guys have any moments that you really liked from this fight or that stood out to you? I mean, I know it was mostly just kind of a massacre, but...
I mean, I don't know. I guess not. There wasn't like one specific moment that like stuck to my memory. Just like the overall effect and emotion of it was what stuck with me. Just more of the intensity of them standing up, coming back for, to vindicate Usopp or to avenge him. Like, that's the part that I remember more than, like, the particulars of the fight.
Sure, rather than the beat-by-beat replay. I'm sure people have noticed I can be a bit hyper-focused on details or obsessive about the things that I love. When I love a particular scene, chances are I've watched it and rewatched on the DVDs or YouTube or Crunchyroll, wherever I can get the rewatch value. So I can probably tell you the exact sequence of events from memory. Starts with Luffy punching the guy in the face, the next guy puts on the battleship armor or whatever. But to me, even though this scene is amazing from start to finish, there are 3 particular details that stand out. 1, Sanji saying, "You pick this fight, you don't get to run," as he's handstanding on some guy's head.
That was good.
As a fan of Sanji, that moment definitely stood out to me, in addition to being a line to be enjoyed by everyone. Well, except for the Franky family. 2, Luffy threatening them with something like, "Not even your bones will remain." That's hardcore. Like, seriously, he didn't even break out those sorts of threats against Arlong or Crocodile. The worst he said in those fights was like, "I'll surpass you," or "I'll kick your butt." So he's in a hurting mood if he's breaking out those kinds of threats. And the last one is Luffy's newest attack, the Gomu Gomu no Cannon! Or, for you English speakers out there, Gum Gum Cannon. The translators worked their butt off for that one.
Yeah.
He starts what looks like a normal Gum Gum Gatling. He's throwing rapid fire punches, and his opponent is wearing this super thick armor that we're told not even a warship could damage. And you realize he isn't doing any damage. But as it goes on for another couple of seconds, you realize you're not hearing the sounds you'd expect from Luffy punching someone in armor, something like pink, 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 pink. So you start to wonder what's going on. The camera zooms in right at the exact moment it needs to, and you notice his attacks, his fists aren't connecting at all. It lasts just long enough for you, the viewer or reader, if you're reading the manga, to ask, what is going on here? And then Luffy's fists start to turn orange, and then, holy crap, he condenses all of that heat into like a super punch, the cannon that blows apart the armor. It's so good.
Yeah, that was amazing. The other thing, well, there are actually kind of 2 things I want to touch on from this fight, but the first thing is the everything cannon, because that's just such a good example of how ridiculous this gang of, like, we can't get enough money together because we spend it all on partying. Yeah, I bet you do. You have a cannon that can shoot snakes.
It's a progression, right? They go from seeing a stretchy rubber guy at their front door to trying to use their cannon, which Zoro cuts in half, to trying to run out of the back where Sanji stops them. No running away for you. Don't know what that accent is, sorry about that. And then they go, maybe we can use the windows? And Chopper is there all, no.
Ah, yes. The other thing I really liked was at the very end of the fight, when everyone was defeated, there was a windmill outside the Franky house, and it slowly stopped spinning to symbolize that they were done. Luffy had defeated them all. And then Luffy was just standing at the highest point possible while his crew was on the ground looking up at him. And I really like that. The future king of the pirates was literally above all this. And that's where he made his decision, we're going to say goodbye to the Mary here. I just thought it was very impactful.
I think the windmill was powered by their partying, and so when they interrupted it, it stopped. Finally.
You know what? I think you're right.
I mean, we've already had 2 other significant windmills throughout the series. I guess technically the other ones were pinwheels, but they have the same rotational model, right? We had Genzo's hat, the police officer from Nami's village, and then of course, Luffy's most devastating attack, Gum Gum Pinwheel, which he used against Momu the sea cow, and was ruled too powerful to be allowed in tournament play. That's why he didn't bust it out against Eneru or Crocodile. He wanted to give them a fighting chance.
Joel, is this foreshadowing? Is there going to be a windmill in the future?
It might be.
We've mentioned on Mike before that part of how Joel got me into the series was obsessively showing me One Piece clips. We watched this one a lot. This one, there was a Zoro one from later. There were a couple of scenes from this arc that I watched on my own, and then I went to Joel and I was like, I watched this scene and it was really cool. And he went, why did you watch that?
Why were you so upset?
It's just, I don't know. I feel certain things should be watched in order. I feel like, so if you saw the duel between Luffy and Usopp, as an example, maybe you wouldn't invest as much time in celebrating their friendship earlier in the series because you might think it's just going to end in heartbreak anyways. Or, the thing that Catherine sometimes did was she would look at me and she would go, is this the thing that causes the duel? Maybe watch and find out. It's more fun that way. At the same time, I'd rather people watch the scenes out of order if it convinces them to watch it or to see how the heights that this series can achieve, rather than trying to watch the first couple of episodes and maybe finding it to not be to their liking.
Also, I was super obnoxious about it by the time we got to Water 7. I was like, is this when we get this scene? Is this when we get this scene? Is it going to happen? Is it happening? And Joel was like, I need you to be quiet and watch the show, and if the scene happens, the scene will happen.
But Joel, she needs to know beforehand so she can prepare herself.
Exactly, right? I do want to say, though, about Luffy's Gum Gum Cannon. So all of his attacks, for the most part, are named after physical weapons. You got whip, bazooka, Gatling gun, pistol. He has a few exceptions like pinwheel or bell. But anyways, is there a grade above cannon that he could bring out later? You know, the Gum Gum Warship or the Gum Gum Black Hawk. That technology, does that exist?
You could have like the Gum Gum Howitzer, the Gum Gum rocket artillery.
No, the Gum Gum Rocket Barrage. He uses rocket over and over again. Not sure how that's an offensive ability, but you get it.
The Gum Gum Gauss round.
The Gum Gum Hell Grenade! Please don't sue us, Dragon Ball. I just wanted to be cool.
Curtis, I had a question for Joel that I asked off mic, and he said, let's discuss that on mic. So here I am on mic discussing it. Do you think that Luffy made his decision about the Mary as a direct result of the Franky fight? So, like, the shipwrights told him that the Mary wasn't strong enough to continue sailing with them, and he didn't believe them. And then Usopp, arguably the weaker member of their crew, probably less prepared to sail on the Grand Line than the others, he got just the crap beaten out of him, and Luffy had to go take care of that. And there's a moment where you can see him contemplating things, and then he says, you know, let's say goodbye to the Mary here. So do you think he connected Usopp's weakness to the Mary's weakness and was able to understand, like, people have limits and boats are people, and so boats have people limits?
Not only that, but to jump in, Usopp even says, are you going to abandon me after I become inconvenient, shortly after waking up and the tension starts to rise. So Usopp himself thinks along the same lines as what Kat is suggesting.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could make the argument that in that moment, Luffy both decided to let the Going Mary and Usopp go. Like, that he came to the realization that maybe you can't just have things on your crew because you want them. Like, if it's not going, like, maybe he's finally, like, making a tactical decision about what ship he has, who his crew members are, that sort of stuff.
Right, because his ultimate dream is to be king of the pirates, and king of the pirates can't be like, well, I really like this ship, I don't care how broken it is.
Yeah. I mean, because you could also make the argument that, at least on the Usopp side, that he is letting Usopp go so that Usopp can go and try to become stronger, which I mean may or may not be true. I don't know. It's weird because this is like the only time we've seen Luffy be serious, and it's hard to read what his thoughts are.
Yeah, absolutely. Many anime are famous for the internal monologues or the background commentators in certain episodes. You know, you have Taya or Joey during a Duel Monsters duel, but if the magic card Kill All Dragons affects all dragon cards and Yugi only has the one monster in play, which is itself a dragon, he'll be wide open to attack. Or JoJo's does that a lot with, my opponent is using a fire-based attack, so naturally I must look for a source of water, but we're in the middle of desert where there is no water. Aha! That turned into Speed Racer for a second there, but the point stands. We don't get those kinds of internal monologues for Luffy in this series. The closest we get are the flashbacks with Usopp in this battle, but that still doesn't really, it leaves something open for interpretation. You don't know exactly what he's thinking. We know that he cares about Usopp, but that's clear already. So we don't know if he's contemplating Usopp's weakness or his own leadership abilities or what Sanji's cooking for dinner later tonight. None of that. Now, at the same time, I don't think Luffy specifically thought to himself, dang, Usopp and Mary are both weak. I should ditch both of them here. Usopp pretty much put that burden on himself, saying, if you get rid of the ship, you're pretty much getting rid of me. And are you going to get rid of me because I'm useless? Which, from Luffy's point of view, really sucks, but he can't or won't change his mind about the Mary.
Yeah, I kind of feel like him refusing to humor Usopp was his way of saying, look, you can be strong enough to say goodbye to the Mary and you can continue to travel with us, or you can stay here and we will leave you behind.
Yeah, so it's almost more of a strength check for Usopp, right?
Exactly. Can you bear this kind of hardship on the seas ahead? It's not going to get any easier.
Mm-hmm.
I do want to really quickly go more in depth on Usopp's reaction to the news. This is the sort of analysis that I did not do on my first watch through, but now that I'm a little bit older and I look for those kind of details, Usopp's reaction to Luffy is really interesting. His first reaction after waking up and asking if they were going to fix the ship if they got the money back, Luffy says, "No, we aren't." And Usopp thinks, oh, you must be lying. Don't lie in front of Chopper. He's going to think that you're serious. To which Luffy says, well, I am being serious. The shipwrights came through and they said it was beyond repair. So Usopp's second reaction after realizing Luffy is serious is, you're going to trust some randos who don't know us?
They're trying to sell us something.
Exactly. So Usopp, who is a known liar, trickster, or however you want to state it, the Piece Together folks like to say that he always rolls a 20 on his charisma checks. But his defense mechanism is to assume other people are also lying or trying to trick them. And maybe, just maybe, they're smart enough to see through the deceit. It's an interesting mental state for him as he gets stuck on the denial stage much longer than the rest of the crew.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and you can watch Luffy slowly getting angrier and angrier as the conversation goes on. Like, he starts off with, they said the Mary was never gonna sail again. Isn't that funny, bro? And then Usopp goes, you're joking, right? And Luffy's like, no, it's really dead. And then as Usopp continues to push him, Luffy gets angrier and angrier until he finally yells, do you think you're the only one who cares about the Mary? And it's really interesting to see the difference in the way they process emotions.
Well, especially because, like, Luffy had already gone through all this, right? Before. Mm-hmm. And so it's obvious he was offended by the assumption that he didn't think long and hard about his decision.
Exactly, right? And that is one danger to Luffy's character type. A lot of shonen protagonists have this happy-go-lucky attitude in their day-to-day lives. Natsu, Naruto, Goku, Gon. And it sometimes gives them the appearance of being thoughtless. And so sometimes one may be tricked into thinking that they haven't put any thought into anything and that they're just, having a laugh when something serious comes up.
Yeah.
And let me lead us into the next part of the discussion I want to have. So it's clear tension is building between Luffy and Usopp as this conversation continues. It's clear neither of them are going to back down. They're just both very stubborn. And it's interesting because everyone who is there, to reiterate, Robin isn't here, and I'm not even sure we saw her in these episodes. But everyone tries to relieve the tension at different times with different tactics that suits them. Chopper's the childish voice of pleading, please guys, please stop this fighting. Sanji literally kicks his own captain to cut him off before he says something stupid. He was about to say, get off of my shit! And then boom! No, shut up, Captain! Zoro is frustrated and he's trying to tell everyone to calm down, and Nami is also trying to calm everyone down, but she's not doing it in the same kind of kid trying to get the parents to stop arguing sort of way, more like, we're all friends here, we're all equals, come on guys, let's stop this before it goes too far. It's all very interesting, and I don't think One Piece needs or would necessarily benefit from this kind of interpersonal drama every arc, but it is, it's truly remarkable for us to be here, and the pacing is it's completely different, and the drama is completely different. It's a welcome break from the usual antics. Everyone wants to stop the situation, but it turns out both Luffy and Usopp have wills of iron, and they won't be easily deterred.
Yeah, I was surprised by how firm Usopp stands. Like, Usopp showed a lot more, like, inner strength and what's the word I'm looking for?
Tenacity or dedication or devotion, maybe?
Well, no, so there's that, but bravery was the word I was looking for. But he shows, he shows himself to be a stronger person than we have seen him be in the past, right? Because normally he just kind of rolls over and folds to whatever is going on around him. And this is like one time he was completely firm about it.
Absolutely. Kat, do you have any further thoughts on Usopp's portrayal in these episodes? It's almost like he's a different person than the Usopp we saw at Arlong Park or Alabasta.
Yeah, I actually think that most of Usopp's character development has been leading him to a moment like this. Like, he's constantly calling himself out for being one of the weaker members of the crew. So to have a moment when he believes in something so strongly that he's willing to challenge Luffy, of all people, it's very impressive character growth.
Certainly, he picked the wrong opponent if he wanted to come out on top, but hey, in that regard, he's mimicking Luffy as well, because Luffy doesn't care about the strength or the status or whatever of his opponents. He's going to pick a fight no matter what.
Watching this fight was actually kind of painful for me too, because Usopp put so much thought into this and how he would counter this attack and that attack and his ultimate goal of setting up the gas. And just watching this and knowing that he never stood a chance despite how hard he was working and how he probably would have beaten anybody else he had tried this with, it's very sad.
Luffy's got that shonen protag power that allows him to push through almost any damage. Before we discuss the duel and our other thoughts on it, let's go into our world-famous ad segment. Let me ask you two something. If you were in a situation where, say, your car was broken down and you needed to repair it, what's the one thing that you would need more than anything?
A phone to call my dad.
Molotov cocktail. You just burn that thing to the ground and get a new one.
Yeah, I mean, you have insurance on it, right? Tell them that it was, I don't know, say it was anime pirates. They blew up your car.
Yes, I got a flat tire, and then it exploded. I need a new car.
My superpowers activated at that exact moment, and when I sneezed, I didn't realize how powerful the sneeze would be. No, you dinguses. The answer, much as the Straw Hats have discovered this week, is money. You need those dollar bills. No, wait, it's dollar, right? Okay, you need the dollar bills, or the yen, or the rupees, or the pesos, or whatever. So that's why this week, Superlife, the company that is dedicated to making all aspects of your life better, from finance to personal fitness to your social life to your education, they're bringing you Money 2.0. The thing about Money 2.0, it's a wonderful, wonderful product, and I would recommend it to anyone. First off, it's universal, so when you're making that trip to Japan to see the bronze statue of Luffy, that's a real thing, look it up, or when you're going to Scotland to listen to the bagpipes, or when you decide to go down to Africa to make a stupid blessing the rain joke, you no longer need to convert your money from one form to another. This is a pretty well-known fact for Americans, but the government at one point was considering creating a different form of currency for each of the 50 states. I don't know what the legislators were thinking, because just think of how confusing that would have gotten, and it would have been unnecessarily complicated, and it definitely would have slowed your grandma down as she was crossing state lines in order to come celebrate your 37th birthday, which obviously is the most important one in the States.
Yeah.
But now, with Money 2.0, you don't have to worry about that.
So, Joel, I got a question.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so is this one of those newfangled cryptocurrencies with the blockchain that I've heard about?
Oh no, this is a physical currency that can be accepted anywhere.
The governments of the world have endorsed this. It is not random internet people saying, yeah, buy my bits.
Yeah, no, you can still purchase bits with Money 2.0 if you so desire, but you no longer need the bits to invest in other products. You can just use Money 2.0 directly, so only buy the bits if you're a serious bit collector. It's a really great system. The other thing about Money 2.0 is that in current economic systems, in a capitalistic society, companies compete for your money, and many of us have preferred products and we show support with our wallets. You might prefer Windows, or you might prefer a Mac, you might like Pepsi over Coca-Cola, you might like McDonald's over Burger King, or you might just be a trash gremlin such as myself who doesn't really care so long as it's greasy and good. But Money 2.0 comes with the added ability to fight other people's money. So if I wanted to support Microsoft, to use that example, and someone else preferred Mac, we could throw our money into a pit, our Money 2.0 into a pit, and let them fight it out. The winner's currency will be worth just a little bit more in this economy.
So if my Money 2.0 wins, it takes a piece of the enemy Money 2.0 and adds it to itself?
Exactly. The other thing, too, is you don't have to worry about the fight being completely one-sided. Just because you're backing a smaller company, or you have only been in a couple of these Money 2.0 battles compared to someone else who's been in hundreds, you're not going to be at a disadvantage. In Money 2.0 combat, much like in shonen battle anime, it's all about that fighting spirit, belief in the product, and also the reliability of that product. So yes, there are times when startups might be at a disadvantage, but if it's a truly ingenious product, it will have the upper hand.
This takes cutthroat capitalism to a whole new level.
Although I will say that Money 2.0 is smart enough to know if you've actually cut an opponent's throat or any other forms of violence, including psychological tactics. So, if you use physical harm or violence or threats of it or psychological pressure or peer pressure or that sort of thing, your Money 2.0 will decrease in value. It has a strictly enforced moral code.
Oh, snap, dog!
So your Money 2.0 can hurt other Money 2.0, but not people, right?
Yes.
Okay. So it's not like we're gonna see a world with Money 2.0 assassins or anything like that. That's just silly, right?
Exactly, of course. That would never happen. And in addition to Money 2.0 not attacking people, it can also detect if you are committing violence against someone else, and it will decrease in value at that point. Plus, with Money 2.0, it's possible to have negative money. What's that like? Well, I wouldn't advise you to find out, but it is possible.
Do you know what it's like to live without one kidney? Or maybe with one eyeball. I mean, assuming you start with two. If you start with one, then you're living with none.
I think that it would probably go for the least important body parts first. I would say it probably goes for the pinky before it goes for, say, an internal organ. And besides, this is all strictly speaking hypothetical anyways. The Super Life Company would never sell you a product that would cause you any harm.
Unless if it benefited them.
Alright, ladies and gentlemen, we're not entirely sure if a competing company has bought Curse's loyalty, but I do want to assure you that this product is completely safe, and I highly recommend Super Life to anyone, my friends, my family, my coworkers. It's perfectly safe as far as I know. And I think that about wraps up our ad segment for today. Folks, we only have one more large talking point before we move on to future speculation, and that's the actual duel between Luffy and Usopp. Do either of you want to tackle giving a few more details about the duel rather than just Luffy and Usopp dueled, there was a winner?
I kind of want to hear you do it.
Yes, Joel. I too would like to hear you describe this fight for us.
Okay, so the most important overview of the duel, in my opinion, is that much like the discussion that happened before the duel, which started out as a normal conversation, then quickly escalated into an argument, this one starts out somewhat simple of a duel, I guess, and then it just keeps evolving in terms of the techniques that Usopp uses. It actually starts with some of Usopp's earliest and most basic techniques, the non-physical ones. He tries to bluff about his 8,000 followers. He tries the Usopp spell of, you have cactus needles under your fingernails. I can't remember exactly what he says, but something like that, right? And Luffy tells him to be serious, and he says, well, this is how I duel. And then he ramps up. He starts going for the live ammunition, the actual things that are going to hurt. He has rotten eggs, and he has pepper shots that, incapacitate Luffy's sight, at least to some level. And he has caltrops and ninja stars, piercing attacks that will actually work against Luffy's rubber body. And towards the end of the duel, he brings out the biggest guns he has. He has the impact dial, which is used very successfully, although he can't use it too many times because the rebound hurts him. And then he also, in a moment of brilliance, he had put out aroma dials that had gas in them, and the reason Luffy didn't notice is because he had the smell of rotten eggs, filling his nostrils, so he didn't even recognize. So Usopp shoots an open flame, and it just creates this gigantic explosion. And it's amazing in a way to see how hard Usopp thought about his strategy, how much effort he put into this duel, and to see him setting up for the big final explosive blow. And I usually don't like flashback in my shonen battle. I'm impatient enough, I'm just child enough that I don't care about the story. I kind of want to see more of the punching and stuff. But even though these are flashbacks we'd already seen, it still felt really interesting and intense, and it rose the tension. And it's a reminder of how close Luffy and Usopp are during their adventures, and it shows how much they don't want to duel, but they both recognize that they're not backing down, their opponent's not backing down. And the repetition actually works because we know that that's how their mind is working. They're thinking about those memories over and over again, even as they fight each other. Hot damn. And you even get, near the end of that duel, you get sad music playing, and I believe that it's a slower, more melancholy version of We Are, and it's just heartbreaking. They even make it look like the Mary is crying at one point. An explosion from Usopp caused water to fall in it, and it looked like tears, and it's pretty cool how many emotions they project onto that ship, despite the fact that it's an inanimate object.
100% inanimate. Definitely not possessed by a demon.
Yeah, and definitely not possessed by something called a devil fruit, which gives it the ability to emote. No, but it's so good. I don't always resonate with things on the emotional level, even when I understand logically what they're going for. But this stuff, it really, really works for me. I don't find the flashbacks tedious, and I feel that they actually added to the emotional resonance, the theme of these episodes. And as Luffy's doing that final stretch and his final blow is coming, he's going, come! You just get one last final stretch of memories, and it's painful and heartbreaking. Or the aftermath only makes it so much worse. Luffy is on the brink of tears, it feels like, and he's telling Zoro, it hurts! And Zoro is just sitting there like, you're the captain. This is your burden. You have to bear it. It's you. If you struggle, who can we depend on? So you've got to be strong for us.
Yeah, it's very effective.
Yeah, the whole fight is just really good. I mean, it's so emotional, and at the same time, too, like, when it starts off, you're like, oh, Usopp's about to get his ass handed to him. And then, I mean, obviously, Luffy still wins in the end, but Usopp does surprisingly well at the beginning. And mostly because Luffy's not taking him seriously at the beginning. But he catches Luffy off his guard, right? And it makes you realize, oh, Usopp could actually be, like, a decent fighter, maybe, in the future. Potentially. But he's off the crew now, so we're not going to see him ever again.
Well, that's what I was saying earlier, is that it's extra heartbreaking to see how hard he's trying, and to be like, yeah, he could really make something of himself, but still know, like, he was never going to win this fight. And not just because Luffy has plot armor, but also because he and Luffy are just in different classes of strength.
Yeah, definitely.
They do a very good job of making you feel for Usopp in these episodes. The way he worries about not being strong enough or not being able to face the others, the sound effects when he's on the ground and trying to get up or trying to beat the Franky family, his desperation in that same scene against Franky, having the Franky goons just beat the crap out of him for, like, literally no reason. Okay, so slight spoilers, right? But we're going to get we're going to learn more about the Franky family, and they're not, like, complete sadists or anything. So it's weird that they, held him down and beat him after he had clearly already lost and then thrown him on the street. It's weird, it's jarring, it's dissonant.
I do wonder if their thinking on that was basically, okay, we took this guy. He had these 2 really high bounty crew members. We don't want them to come here and kick our ass because we kicked his ass and took their money. So we have to kick his ass so bad that they're scared to come back here. And of course it doesn't work.
Yeah, and it doesn't work. They're used to being able to use their sheer numbers to intimidate, but they're antagonists in an anime, unfortunately for them. It's a very good set of episodes, easily among my favorites, not just where we've been so far, but in the entire series. And these episodes also, in a weird sort of way, help me realize that Usopp has some of the best fight finishes in the entire series. His speech to Miss Merry Christmas about not running from a fight, or his line to Chew the Fishman about wine is flammable, or his line here to Luffy about you didn't realize the air was filling with gas, did you? They're wonderful.
That was a very clever tactic.
I'd like to see more of that.
Yeah, the problem is that it comes from Usopp knowing his opponent so well in this case and having the time to prepare for the battle. It would be hard for him to set up the gas dials in the middle of a battle impromptu, right, without his opponent realizing what he was up to. So how often has Usopp really gotten the chance to see his opponent's abilities before the fight starts? But maybe that's what he needs, If he were to show up later in the series in some way, maybe he needs to be able to determine his opponent's fighting style or abilities before the battle even begins, or he could just be the sort of person who has a plan for literally anything. He could be the Batman of whatever crew he ends up joining. Maybe we'll see the Usopp Pirates Part 2 soon.
No foreknowledge allowed, but do you guys think Usopp is gone forever?
I mean, obviously he's gone forever. I think Usopp, the actor playing Usopp, had other things to do, and they wrote him off the show so he could leave. That's probably what happened.
Okay, now give me your actual thoughts.
I think probably, because I get the feeling that almost no main characters in the show ever disappear permanently, right? Like, let me give you a good example here. They defeat Eneru, and then at the end of that arc, we see Eneru flying to the moon. He's not dead. He's going to the moon. He's going to come back, obviously, because he's going to the moon. Who wouldn't want that in their show? I get the feeling that nobody really disappears in One Piece, except for filler characters, maybe, and like some background people.
Yeah, absolutely. Or the moms. Moms are the victims of that as well, but I see what you're saying. Maybe Usopp will think to himself, yeah, okay, I lost this duel, and maybe he'll go out and gather his own crew, comprised of Luffy's former enemies. You know, he'll get Arlong and Kuro and Crocodile and form his own sort of League of Villains, Injustice Society sort of team.
With our powers combined, what do they make? Is it Captain Planet? I don't know. This is a bad joke. Let's continue.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have, or I suppose had, a hard time at this point in the series really understanding where it was going to go. I didn't want to believe that Usopp was gone forever. I've said this before, but Luffy and Usopp really feel like best friends to me, given how much time they spend together and how close they are in age. So seeing him go is impactful, but I feel somewhat informed by the genre, right? Vegeta and Hiei, for example, from Dragon Ball Z and Yu Yu Hakusho, respectively, they had arcs where they returned to their evil ways or left because they felt weak, and eventually they came back and had learned something from it just in the nick of time to save the hero or to help out the heroes. Or Matt, the Digidestin from the first season of Digimon, or Sasuke from Naruto, they turned to the dark side and they came back. Usually if a character leaves that was part of the main crew in a shonen anime, they'll probably come back. So I'm more curious a little bit more than will he come back, but rather under what circumstances will he come back? What journey will he go on before coming back, you know? Will he get stronger while he's away because he wants to be able to defeat Luffy or other strong opponents like him later? Will he discover some really important piece of information while he's in some secondary location? Is he going to escape capture because he's not there when something happens, and so he's going to have to be the one to save the day? Will he make a dramatic entrance, and will that be how he reintroduces himself back into the crew? I've saved you all, and by the way, guys, you can welcome me back at any time.
So two thoughts. One, it'd be really funny if Usopp came back right at the end of the series. So, like, let's say they get to the end, and there's a sign that says, "Ye be worthy of Pirate King if ye put on the crown at the top of these stairs." And Luffy's walking up the stairs, and then Usopp comes out of nowhere, shoves him to the side, takes the crown, and says, "Ha! Now I'm the Pirate King," and just takes it from him. And then that's the end.
Hey, Luffy, want to have another duel? And that's when Arlong just jumps out of the water and friggin' bites him in the side. "Oh, my kidney!" Luffy exclaims. "The secret source of my strength!"
Exactly. Second thought was, Usopp with a devil fruit power would be interesting. What devil fruit power do you think Usopp might get if he were to get one?
If Usopp were to get a devil fruit power, maybe something that lets him lock on to a target?
Like the target fruit or the location fruit? Oh, or he could get the bat fruit and use echolocation and stuff to find his enemies.
We've already seen the bat fruit.
Did we?
That was in a movie. It wasn't canon.
Which one was that?
It was one of the early ones that you guys watched without me.
Huh. And you're the only one that remembers.
Wait, maybe that wasn't a fruit. Maybe he was just a bat.
There is a video game, I believe, where a villain shows up with the bat fruit model vampire, but I don't think he shows up in the anime, and they didn't give him a filler tie-in or anything like that. Hey guys, this is Editor Joel stepping in to say that yes, there was a pirate that got turned into a bat. That was during the special Adventure in the Ocean's Naval, which was way back in the early days of One Piece. As always, my wife was right, and we were forgetting something very important. Back to the show. Also, I hope Usopp doesn't get a Logia fruit power. Can I just say that? And I hope that no Logia ever joins the crew, because Luffy's aesthetic is basically friends hanging out and or going on a road trip together. So to introduce someone that can just shoot fire or lightning or turn into smoke, it would feel really out of place.
Usopp beheads Crocodile and gets the sand fruit.
Oh my god.
And he just uses it to annoy people. Like, he flicks sand in their eyes and...
Oh, okay. There you go.
So here was my thought for him. The scope fruit.
Oh, okay.
One would be aiming, but two, he would get the scope ability that Chopper has when he's in whatever point.
Brain point?
Yeah, because like you were saying, or I think as Kat said earlier, usually he doesn't get enough time to analyze his opponents, right? Or maybe that was you, Joel, I don't remember. But, and so that, like, the reason he did so well at the beginning of this fight was because he knew Luffy so well. With the scope fruit, he could analyze them and know them intimately from the beginning and know how to counteract them right away.
Oh, okay.
Also, it could potentially allow him to see through walls, maybe? Because, the powers in One Piece aren't really set in stone. They can be pretty vague. Mm-hmm. Or he also gets the scan ability, like in Kingdom Hearts. There's your reference for the day. But that would allow him to see the life bars above other people, and he could be the support unit to Luffy, I know you've given him a lot of punches, but you can do it. Just one more punch. He's almost at the end of his life bar.
Wait, how many punches, Joel?
Like I said, it would take him 3 more punches.
Oh, you're a turd.
It's really interesting to me how Sanji is just sort of there. Like, he hasn't really done much. He kicked Luffy in the face once, and he keeps seeing things, but otherwise he's just, he's there. He hasn't done much.
Hey, I disagree. He did have one other moment to shine outside his interaction with Luffy and his contributions to the raid on the Franky house. So Luffy is with Nami in the shipyard, and he decides he's going to go rescue Usopp and attack the Franky house, and he runs off without having any idea where they are. She, meanwhile, goes back to the Mary, and she finds the rest of the crew. She tells them where to find Usopp. They go to where he is, and turns out he's not there anymore. He's already also gone to the Franky house. But while they're sitting there kind of wondering where he went, trying to puzzle out what they should do, who comes falling from the sky but their idiot captain? He decided that he was going to imitate Kaku's method of jumping from building to building, except he doesn't have the coordination, and he fell directly into the water. And Sanji, once again, is the one who jumps in to save Luffy, which is interesting because he's the one who saved Luffy back at the Baratier when he was trapped in the net that Don Krieg had fired at him. He was responsible for freeing Luffy from the concrete back at Arlong Park. And this doesn't technically count, but he was the one who rescued them when they were inside the cage back at Rain Base while the room was filling up with water. No one was drowning at that moment. He didn't save just Luffy, but, it was Sanji and it was another water-based rescue. So Sanji is our underwater savior confirmed?
Yeah, I have to wonder if this is why Oda made his animal a duck, because he's always the one jumping in the water. Maybe he just likes to take his shoes off, and that's why he's always jumping in the water. He only gets to take them off if he's swimming.
Okay, maybe. I could also see the argument being made that maybe Zoro is the type of person who would demand others stand on their own and handle their own business. So I could sort of see him being like, Luffy, you got yourself in the water, you got to get yourself out. That kind of contradicts how he acts at other points in the canon, but it certainly contrasts with Sanji, who's very kind and he doesn't want people to starve or anything like that. Quick note, though, and I love this gag. As Luffy is falling, the hiragana, that's one of the Japanese writing systems for listeners who don't know, but the hiragana for the letter A is coming out from his mouth like the sound effect bubble. This isn't the first time that we've seen this visual joke, and it tickles me every goddamn time we see it.
I know that Scott Pilgrim was very anime, but this was very Scott Pilgrim. Like, just having the letters, I liked it a lot.
So, what if Sanji always jumps in after Luffy because he realizes that Luffy has always just eaten and he's afraid of him cramping? And because, he's the cook and he's like, oh no, you can't go into the water right after you ate.
I can totally see that. Stupid, idiot, captain!
I think one of my favorite ongoing jokes is when Luffy falls in and Chopper jumps in after him, and then Chopper's like, oh no, I can't swim either! Or vice versa. I think that's happened a couple of times now.
It happened in the movie that we just watched a couple ago.
I can't say it either happens canonically or is at least shown in one of the openings. I don't know if it's a common occurrence or a joke that is repeated as often as, say, like Nami's love of money or Usopp's various fictional diseases, but it's a good one.
Yeah. Did you guys like Franky's introduction?
Yeah. he's mysterious right now. I mean, he's wearing a mask, so I know nothing about him other than the fact that he has big forearms.
Okay, here's my question. Franky's mask, is it because he was born and raised in Water 7, so it's part of his heritage, it's part of his culture? Or is it something that Oda gave him in order to hide something about his face and or identity?
I mean, what if this is like a Phantom of the Opera thing where there is something wrong with his face and he's hiding it with the mask?
Right? See?
Is what he's buying facial surgery so he can go out in public and be a member of society again?
Sorry, babe. You might be getting ahead of yourself. I wanted to touch on a few things first before we got into that discussion.
I was just trying to make a joke. We didn't have to launch into a discussion based on that.
Let's spend the next 5 to 10 minutes talking about facial reconstruction surgery and how many berries we think it would cost.
There is a place that I've heard of while visiting family called Beyond Bones, which is just a ridiculous name for a chiropractor clinic. I have evolved beyond bones.
Wait. I'm going to search this real quick.
While Curtis is searching that up, I like Franky a lot. I feel like he's very pragmatic for how extra he is. You know, he saw the explosions over at the Franky house and he just went, oh, they must be partying a little too hard. Good for them.
I do have another really quick note. In the subs, Franky is voiced by Kazuki Yao. I hope that I'm pronouncing their name correctly, but it's entirely possible I am not. But his voice acting may sound familiar to you, Curtis, because he also voices Django the Hypnotist from Usopp's Village, as well as Mr. 2 Bon Clay from Baroque Works in One Piece. He was also Takeda the Boxer from Kenichi History's Mightiest Disciple.
Side note, if you want to hear us talk about Takeda, tune in for our August bonus episode.
Also, I do want to point out, we don't know much about Franky, but we'll probably learn a little bit more about him, given that he's off doing something right now, and one assumes he'll react in some way to his house being destroyed. Who can guess what emotion he might be feeling when he sees that? But we do have enough information to determine he is a very flamboyant Wreck-It Ralph. I say this because he leads the demolition team, he lives outside the city where the normal law-abiding citizens live, and he has huge arms. Arms big enough or strong enough to punch through one of Usopp's exploding stars without taking any damage. Curtis, do you think this is because he does a lot of lifting, or is there another explanation?
He must have eaten the forearm fruit, and all it did was give him big forearms. It has no other powers at all, despite this being One Piece. That's it. He just gets big forearms.
Nope, he ate the Sailor No Me. He is Popeye. His forearms are big because he ate spinach.
There you go.
That's actually what Franky's face is behind the mask. It's just a mass of wriggling, living spinach.
Ugh.
That's your horrifying mental image for the day.
I don't like it. I'm going to bed.
Alright, so on my list of notes, I had general discussion, quick notes, and speculation questions, but I've run out of the first two. So before we move on, do either of my lovely co-hosts have any thoughts on these current episodes before we look toward the future?
Why, yes I do, Joel. I have one thought. And it is, in fact, a very serious thought and not silly in any regard.
Mangoes are delicious. I got you. I don't necessarily agree, but hey, I respect to have whatever fruit-based opinion you have.
I mean, mangoes are okay. You know, but that's okay. That's beside the point, Joel. The point I want to make here is what if the Going Merry is not in fact a ship? What if the Going Merry is a sheep that ate the ship fruit?
Okay, that's not bad.
Yeah, so that's why it looks like a ship and has the sheep head mast, right? And that's why it will come back. It's not going to... They think it's broken permanently, but they don't realize that the ship is actually alive.
They did point out that ships can't get stronger the way that people do, or heal the same way that they do, so you might be onto something.
Yeah, and then also that would explain all the weird emotions the ship mast or the headpiece has, right?
Okay.
So, what if those tears, that's not just a dramatic, the rain or the water splash on it is making it look like it's crying. What if it's actually crying, Joel?
Okay, interesting. I do have to wonder, though, if an animal eats a devil fruit, does it still have to, eat? Because how would you explain that? Is the Mary just going out and having a midnight snack while the crew is asleep?
Well, and if devil fruit users can't swim, if it ate the ship fruit, would it still be able to float?
I assume that falls under the jurisdiction of ship and not swimming.
And being on the water makes you weak, so that's why it's been breaking.
That's why it doesn't transform back randomly, is because it's been in the water this whole time. It thought about transforming when they were in the clouds, and then it decided against it, because it was like, then these people are going to fall, and it's going to be very sad. So I'm going to stay like this. But to answer the food question, it has a second mouth on the bottom that just eats plankton.
Okay. So she has like a whale's mouth on the lower half, and it eats as she sails along. That's horrifying. Alright, yeah, we'll have to keep an eye out on Mary's future transformation back into a sheep, per your prediction. This is something that we brought up earlier, but we didn't really go into depth on it. Franky gets 200 million berries in these episodes, and he gives a speech about how anytime they tried to save up a little bit of money, they'd either bet it on the horses and lose, or they would spend it all before they were able to save enough. Now their family has enough money, and they're going to buy, quote-unquote, it. Curtis, as the casual, I'd like you to weigh in. What could he possibly be buying that costs so much money?
For 200 million berries? I mean, his family's really big. Maybe he just wants to get a house. Like, a better house than the one they had. I mean, I was just gonna say, the house they had looks like it was like an old shack, and they just kind of did the best they could, but he wants to go buy a better house.
What if the it that the Franky family is trying to buy is the same it that Iceburg is trying to keep from the world government?
Ooh, I mean, that would be interesting. They're certainly from the same town, and we know very little about either of them. There could be a deeper connection than we suspect. They both have blue hair, even if Franky is much lighter and Iceburg is edging on purple hues.
Well, and Iceburg kind of like gazed fondly at the Franky house, like when he was explaining them.
Oh, did he? I missed that.
What if they are? What if they're related? What if they are brothers?
Iceburg is the respectable brother who like went to college and got a real job, and Franky's the deadbeat brother who still lives at his frat house.
Yeah.
I like that. And they're just stealing pirates to make some money? That's a great idea.
You gotta pay for booze somehow.
The only thing that makes sense to me, from what we know of Franky and his family at this point, like, we literally only have two pieces of information. They're both bounty hunters and demolition workers. So something like a giant hammer, maybe, that will help them smash or demolish better? I have no idea. Maybe a wrecking ball so that they can make a Miley Cyrus reference. Google is telling me that joke is only 6 years old, so it's still not completely petrified.
He's gonna go have a custom-built ship made that is like a giant puzzle so that it'll be more fun for them to demolish.
Oh, he's doing like a team-building exercise for the entire family.
A very expensive one.
Okay, so going back to another thing we hinted at, what might Iceberg have that the government wants? It clearly shows him telling this Corgi guy, I have no idea what you're talking about. But then immediately after, he tells Khalifa, his secretary, they want something that I have, so it's clearly in his possession, but it's also something he wants to keep a secret.
What if he has Robin's soul trapped in a jar? And so he's able to use that to control her power. I don't know.
Right.
This is wild speculation. I'm trying to tie together that along with the poster of Robin in the room, like the wanted poster from when she was a kid.
So we know as a kid, Robin sank 7 warships?
I think she sank 6 warships at the age of 8. The two numbers I have in my head for Robin's past are 6 and 8.
Okay, so she sunk 6 warships. Maybe Iceburg came into possession of whatever she used to do that?
Oh, okay. And he knows that that's the only piece of evidence that can exonerate her, so maybe he knows she might be after him in order to obtain it, and she may be willing to do harm given how serious her crimes are supposed to be, so it could be a self-preservation thing.
It's very possible. We will have to wait and find out.
Yes, I do also want to point out that it's interesting that he keeps bringing up Robin and he has her wanted poster hanging up in his office. I don't think we have enough information about Iceburg or Robin's past in order to be able to identify their connection to know for sure. But we should probably suspect Iceburg either knows of her past or maybe he was directly involved. It's interesting, too, that he happens to be the mayor of this town, and he has an interest in her shortly after Aokiji showed up and warned them that she would betray them, which is also shortly after they met a masked man who seemed to target her. Was the masked man working for Iceburg? Iceburg is either against the government or maybe parallel to them, just working against this Corgi guy. So he may have assassins or secret employees or underlings, whatever you want to call them, and maybe they're doing his dirty work while he, his public face, is the beloved mayor of the city, and if anyone should ever suspect him, he just kind of, oh no, I've been in meetings all day, just ask Khalifa. She takes very detailed notes of my schedule.
I'm definitely excited to see more about their connection.
One last question, and we really should have already gone over this a while ago, but Robin has disappeared, and it's established that Chopper can't smell her anymore, and Sanji turned that corner almost immediately after she went around that corner, and he sees no sight of her. So, Curtis, do you have any ideas on how realistically she could have vanished? Did she just dive into the water? But no, that can't be it, because she has a devil fruit.
Yeah. My assumption is we are about to learn about a new mechanic in the One Piece world that we did not know about before. I mean, it could be a secret door, too. I don't know. That would be easier. But it could be like, how we learned about the telephone snail things?
Oh, yeah, the Denden Mushies? Yep.
And maybe there's something that, lets people teleport around that we just didn't know about before now.
Ooh, or alternatively, the mask guy could have had a second mask, which actually had an airtight seal. He had Robin put it on, has her jump in the water, and while she can't swim, there could be scuba divers down there ready to retrieve her to swim her away. So it's almost like the secret underwater passageway in the City of Water, which is perfect.
It could be. That would make sense. It's really the only thing that makes sense, Joel.
Exactly. It's either that or Rick's portal gun, but I don't think the world is ready for a Rick and Morty One Piece crossover at this juncture.
If you pay attention, in episode 308 of Rick and Morty, you can briefly see the One Piece flag flash in the background of a portal.
Yeah, briefly flash in the background during a chase scene. And I think that's been your...
Doot 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 doot. Final thought. Outro goes here.
Alright folks, join us next time for episode 72, where we'll be covering 4 more episodes of the anime. That's 237, 238, 239, and 240. Have a great morning, day, or evening, whichever may apply. Bye. So ends the next leg of the King of the What Now adventure. We're sad to see you go, but we'll be here next week. If you crave some social interaction with us in the meantime, you can find us on all sorts of different media. We have Gmail, Patreon, and Tumblr. All of those are King of the What Pod. King of the What Pod at gmail.com, patreon.com/King of the What Pod, kingofthewhatpod.tumblr.com. Our Twitter handlers are a little bit different. You can reach me at KOTWN_pod.
And you can contact me, Curtis, at Pirate Co-host. Also, please take a moment to rate and review our podcast on whatever platform you're using to listen. Not only will this help others find the podcast, but your constructive feedback will help us improve the show as we go.
Thanks so much for giving us a listen. Until next time, follow your dreams and protect your treasure.
Remember, it doesn't need to be literal treasure.